Now, in a previous video, we demonstrated how to create a staggered pattern for our cavities. And so in this video, we're going to demonstrate how to create a rotated staggered pattern. That is, with some of these cavities being rotated 180 degrees relative to the other cavities. And that could be useful for nesting purposes depending on the shape of the cavities. So we'll work on this existing model, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this part, which is a structured part, to active. So right clicking here and set as active, and this means that we can now edit the geometry within our structured part and add additional features. So to begin with, I'm going to roll back the state of our structured part, roll back to where I want to make a change. And so, well, one more step here to the original cavity. So this is our cavity body that was originally imported from an existing file. And I want to make a rotated copy of this, but I want some assistance regarding where this rotated copy is going to be positioned. And so what I've done is I've created a layout sketch and saved it in my catalog, which I can just drag into any project, any file. And like any other sketch in structured parts, we can constrain the positioning of it. And so with it selected in the scene browser, right click and go edit position. And it's locked in on the plane that I dropped it on, which is great because that's where I want it. But I want the origin of the sketch to follow this point on that face, right in the center. And this is really important. So in these options on the right, make sure fix to reference is selected. Because what I want to happen is that if this body moves within the model, I want this 2D sketch to follow it. And if I don't have this fixed to reference selected, then it won't. So that's important. I'm happy with this, and we'll go OK. So now I've got this sketch in place here, and I want to now create a copy of the original body. And to do that, I'm going to use the tribal. So with the body selected, so in the scene browser, I've selected it, and you can see the color has changed. Turn on the tribal, and now the tribal is attached to what I had selected. I'm going to lock the center axis, and then within the center of the tribal here in this area, see it changes to a hand. On the outside it's an arrow, on the inside it's a hand, and you see a little arrow there. Now I'm going to hold down the right mouse button and just drag it towards the left and then release. And I'm going to select copy. Now within structured parts there's no link copy option here. So this is going to be an unlinked copy. Now I want one copy, and I want it at an angle of 180 degrees to the original. All right. So now I'm just going to move this second body out of the way, and I'm just going to lock. So left click on this top plane. So it just locks the height plane, and we'll position it here and turn off my tribal. So in my scene browser, I've got the original cavity body, which I'll call body 1 now. And now I've got this copy, and we'll call that 2. And I'm just going to put in parentheses a note that this is an unlinked copy. So what that means is that if a change is made to the original body here, that change won't be reflected in this one. So that's important to keep in mind. So now I want to lock this second body to this point on my sketch, because the purpose of this sketch is to control the positioning of this second body, but we're also going to use the sketch for driving the other patterns that are going to follow. So within IronCAD, within the assembly tab, we have positioning constraints. And these are used for positioning of solids and surfaces to each other, but they don't work with sketches. So I could use a positioning constraint between this body and this body, but what I want to do is I just want to lock it to the sketch. So I can't use these positioning constraints for that. Instead though, I can use smart dimensions. And so in our annotation tab on the far left, I can use these smart dimensions. But with smart dimensions, it's important to select what you want to position first in the scene. So IronCAD doesn't know, well, what am I applying these dimensions to? And it's this body here that I want to move. So I need to select it first, so it's highlighted. And now turn on the Smart Dimension tool. And I'm going to select the center of this body because that's what I'm interested in. And then I'm going to select this line in my sketch. And so not a point, I want it to be in perpendicular to that line, so I'm going to select that line. Now this dimension that's been placed is an unlocked dimension or a driven dimension. It's just display purposes at the moment. But if I right click on it, so hover till it turns to a hand, right click, then I can go to lock. And so what it's become now is a driving dimension. So whatever value here is going to drive the position of my body now. That little blue arrow indicates what's going to move. In this case, it's this body. So now I'm going to right click on the value and go edit this smart dimension. And so 3.7 is the current. I'm just going to change that to 0. And you can see now that my body has moved to a value of 0 from that line. Now this tool is still active until I press escape. So I'm going to repeat the process. And so select again the center of my body here and select this line. Now again, I don't want to point, I want to select this line here and right click to lock it and right click again to edit the value, and I'll put 0 and I'll deactivate the tool. So now this body is locked to my sketch using some dimensions. So if I select on the body here and expand it, you'll see that some constraints have been added. So these constraints are smart dimensions. They are constraints just like the assembly constraints here, but they work on with our sketches. So back to our here. Now if you don't see your constraints here under the part, you can right click here in your scene browser, top right hand corner. Oh, sorry, just maybe I'll go out of active, so deactivate. That's it. So left click, apply more filters, and this is where you can control what's being displayed here. So in this case, I wanted the constraints to be displayed as under the document, which is down the bottom, but I also wanted them to be displayed within the part, which is why this is checked here. So backing it back into my part. So if I click on my sketch here, if I change a value in my sketch, so if I go edit here, edit, and change a value for these here, so whether it's the 50 or the 70, then those lines will move and the part will move with it. Now these dimensions have all got names, and so if I right click in the sketch to open the parameters table, you'll see that the names of those dimensions are now visible in the sketch. So these are all parameters. So I'll go OK, and I'll go out of my sketch. Now to demonstrate, if I again just click on the sketch, and if I double click on one of these dimensions and say change it to 35, the sketch moves, click outside, and the body's followed. Let's try again, 50, enter, and it's followed. Now with the sketch there are a number of dimensions. If they're red, that means that they're locked or driving dimensions. If they're blue, it means that they are driven dimensions. And so I've got some options here within the sketch regarding how I position the second body. So for example, instead of driving it by using an X and Y dimensions, I can unlock these dimensions. Again, I'm right clicking on them, and I can use polar dimensions instead. So I could use this angle, and I could use this length here. So let's say I change this to 45 degrees and this length here to 100, and it's moved. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in this to how you can control things to achieve what you want. So I'll just return this. Again, right click to unlock that, right click to lock this one. I want to set this to 35. I'm going to unlock this one, and I'm going to lock my X and change this to 50, and click on my scene, and the model's rebuilt. So that positionally wise, that's where I want this second body. So the next step is let's roll back and have a look at our pattern. Doesn't look quite right, so if I select on the pattern itself, and you can see that my pattern doesn't include everything, and so I've got my original body here which has been patterned, and then I've got my second body which was here which hasn't been patterned. And the reason is because in my original pattern I only selected that original body. So what I need to do is add the second body to this pattern. So right click on the pattern and edit the feature, and in the properties panel on the right, under features, this was the only thing that's being patterned at the moment. So I want to select this pattern, the body as well. And so now I've got a preview. You'll only get a preview when a change has been made in the properties panel. And so it doesn't really, it's patterning what I want, but the values aren't quite what I want. So I can make some changes here. So we could change, I'll make my angle, maybe change that back to 90 degrees. And maybe change a value here to say 120 and 120. Oh, wrong one, sorry. That was 90 and 120. Okay, now I'll go okay. It doesn't seem to be populating the area all that well, and the reason for that is that in the pattern it's looking at the available area, and it's looking at all of the items that I've selected, in this case 2 bodies, and it's treating this as a group, and it's looking at the available area and says, well, where can I position this group together, obeying the variables that I've put in. And so the end result was that there wasn't many options for where it could put it. So let's say if I change that value here, okay, I've got a little bit more room here, and if I change this, no, it's still not. So if I want a more efficient use of this area, I need to give IronCAD the flexibility that it can pattern these 2 bodies individually. And so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to remove the second pattern from second body from this pattern here. Go OK. And now we're going to add a second pattern. And so what I need to do is move this here below this first pattern. So I'm just left clicking on it and I'm just dragging it down to below this pattern here. Now it's changed in the assembly structure of this model, but it hasn't changed location at all in the geometry, and the constraints that I set up to the sketch, they're all still there, nothing has changed, but the order inside the assembly structure, that means that I can do something. I can create another pattern now using this body. And so the next step is to create a second pattern. So we'll go to our feature, pattern feature, and I want to as a fill pattern, I want to select that copied body here, and I want, that's the fill area, and the axes, well, I'm going to use the same as what I have for the previous ones, which is this edge here, and that's just been consistent with my x-axis of the scene. So we'll go back to our view here, and I'm just going to leave these other values, but you can see now that there's another pattern taking place. Right, and we'll give this a name. So our first pattern, we'll call that pattern 1, and this one we will call pattern 2. Now each of these patterns has got parameters, and so if I look at the first pattern here and right click on it and go down to the parameters associated with that, you can see that there's some parameters here, and there's 3, and I'm just going to give them a different name. So I'm just going to call it fill pattern, and I'm just going to Control C here to copy, and I'm going to put that in front of each of these and go apply. And now I'm just going to show you, and we'll create a new pattern here as well. So we'll create a new one, Control V and angle, and this is going to be an angle parameter, so I need to select this, and I'll leave this as 0 for now. Now if I expand this here, these parameters, what's highlighted here, is showing me the parameters for this feature. And so I'm just going to right click on here and edit the feature options. And so I've just gone, it was a shortcut to go back to the feature options, and you'll see that the parameter names are now shown and where the variables were. And the one that isn't is the angle. So I'm just going to replace that value of 90 there with the parameter name, which was fill pattern angle. So what I'm saying is that I want IronCAD, this tool, to follow these parameter names. Go OK, and now I'm going to do the same for the previous pattern as well. So that's pattern's already got the names in it, and so the second pattern, do the same. So we've got fill pattern, Control V, Control V, and create a new pattern here for the angle, and OK. And let's do so I'm going to right click now on to edit the features, and I just need to put in here the name of that angle parameter. So again, this feature is following those parameter values. So I've got individual parameters for each of these pattern features, but I want to link them to the parameters from my sketch. Now to create that link, you need to be able to see the parameters together, all on one page. Now these features are all subsets of the part. So if I select at the part level on the left here, and then this little checkbox here, show all parameters below, will allow me to see all of the parameters within that part. And so now I can create links between them. And so I had here's my sketch, my layout sketch, and I want this fill angle here. So I'm going to Control C, I'm just copying this here, and I want that to be populating this fill pattern here. So Control V, and I want it to so that was pattern 1, and then for pattern 2 I want to do the same here, so Control V. I'll go back up to my next one. So in my circular sketch pattern, my fill pattern distance 1, Control C to copy that, and then go down to the equivalent parameter name here and here. And so what I'm telling IronCAD is that I want the values from these parameters here, to populate these parameters here. And then the next one was fill pattern distance 2, and this is going here and here. So what I've done is I've created links now where the fill patterns are going to follow the parameters of the sketch. Now in the names, you'll notice that there's an _1, _2. Whenever there is a duplication of names, IronCAD will add that _2, _3, etc. So if I select the sketch itself, you'll see that there's no underscore here because there's no duplication of names in what's being displayed. If I select this feature, it's the same, there's no underscores there's no underscores. It's only when they're all being displayed together and there's a duplication, then the underscore and numeral is added to help distinguish between them. So with my parameters all in place, I can now make some changes to my patterns using my sketches. And so with this sketch here, I've already made a change to my circular pattern here, but these dimensions here relate to where the fill pattern is going to be. So I can make a change here to this value, and so I could bring this in. I've just double clicked on that dimension and say make that 95, and you'll see that both patterns have followed suit. In a similar way, this value up here, which is 140, can change this to 130, and you can see that the pattern has adjusted. If I can just select the sketch and make whatever change I want, and both patterns follow suit. So back to the sketch. Right, so I've now got a rotated pattern, which is also staggered. Now, this might not appear particularly efficient in this available area, and because it's all driven by the position of this first body. So with that body selected, and I turn on the tribal, I'm just going to change the position of this. So I'm going to use this axis to lock it, and I'm just going to drag that to the left by 48 millimeters. And turn off my tribal, click on the scene, and I'm just going to help IronCAD rebuild here. So I'm going to select the part and regenerate. And so IronCAD has now worked out, well, with that first body in that position, I can now fill this area more efficiently. Now it's the same if I move this back to where it was. So this was, I'll lock that axis, edit position, so put this to 0, 0. So that's back where it was. It hasn't rebuilt yet, and I'll move it 18 millimeters the other way. And it's rebuilt, and again it's able to more efficiently fill in that area. So that's all possible because we have constrained that sketch to the original body. We've constrained the second body to that sketch, and we've got the other patterns all following that original sketch. So I can roll back our part here back to the end. So right click, roll back to end, and it's fully regenerated. We've got rotated cavities, we've got a staggered pattern. Just like in the other videos, I can select my tray cavity area here and change the values. I'll just manually drag it out, and IronCAD will calculate what can fit within that area. Thinking. Right, new tray, same again. Tray cavity area, we'll change it out this way. I can set a value, but we'll just accept that. And IronCAD's going to calculate the rest. So there we have it, our rotated, staggered cavities using unlinked copies.